Welcome to a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat. If you're here to get your fantasy football questions answered, you've come to the right place. If you're here to get your sports betting questions answered, you've come to the right place. And if you're here by accident, well, it's going to be entertaining, so you should probably just, stick around. We're going game by game on the main slate today, getting all of your questions answered, all of your info that you need for each matchup coming your way at once. All right, don't forget, we desperately want to hear from you and answer your questions. So however you're watching us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, pull out those keyboards and type away. Ask your DFS or Sportsbook questions. We're going to try our darndest to answer as many as we can live on the air. And as an added bonus for you Facebook folks, very exciting, keep an eye out for a special feature that includes polls, questions, and the chance for your comments to actually appear on the show. All right, let's welcome in our first panel of the day. DraftKings contributors Julian Edlow, Greg Ehrenberg, and Gary and Thorne getting your takes on the most interesting 1 o'clock games. Let's start with the Chiefs-Titans matchup. Patrick Mahomes is back. They're 6-point favorites in Tennessee. Julian, do you expect Mahomes to look like himself and cover this spread?
I do, a little bit reluctantly. It's not a safe spot that I would necessarily trust. I don't know if I'll be betting this game against the spread, but Mahomes, the Chiefs did as much as they possibly could to clear Mahomes. They had him see a lot of specialists. They unanimously cleared Mahomes as good to go. So maybe his mobility will be a little bit of an issue, but as long as he's out there, he has that arm, and he's playing against this so-so Titans team that's gotten a little bit of life with Ryan Tannehill, I still think the Chiefs are going to be the much better team all around.
Greg, do the Chiefs cover the spread?
Yeah, I think they do. And the time off I actually think could be a good thing for Mahomes, because if we remember what he was playing like prior to the knee injury, he wasn't playing as well as he did last season. Like, he was banged up a little bit. He had an ankle injury. So I think now that he had the time off because of the dislocated knee, I think the knee is going to be healthier. I think the ankle is going to be healthier. I think overall he's going to be getting more back to playing like we saw from the first few weeks of the season, as opposed to the next few games after that, where he was kind of a little more pedestrian than we're used to seeing from him.
I mean, Gary, and even at less than 100%, Mahomes is a boost. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs can definitely cover this game. The Titans just don't seem like all that daunting an opponent, even at home. They've only covered once in their last 6 home games against the spread. They're 0-4 their last 4 home games against teams above 500. So they just don't really do all that well when the level of competition steps up a little bit. And also, I think the Chiefs sort of have a weird advantage on defense. I mean, the Titans' offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL by adjusted sack rate. And if there's anything the Chiefs are capable of doing on defense, it's getting pressure on the quarterback. So I think this could get pretty lopsided, honestly.
Point total is 49.5 in this one. Greg, do you think that's too high?
No, I actually think for what we've seen out of Chiefs games last couple of years, it's relatively low. I think there's a little bit of bias towards against the Chiefs just because Patrick Mahomes is coming back from that injury. And the other thing to consider, too, is that Ryan Tannehill has actually played reasonably well this season, and also that the Chiefs' defense is terrible. The Chiefs' defense gives up all kinds of points. So I think there's reason to think that even though the Chiefs win this game pretty comfortably, the Titans should be able to score, and it should be a relatively high-paced, high-scoring game. So I think it could hit the over and should hit the over.
Gary, do you think this is going to hit the over?
I actually think it's going to hit the under. Like I said, there's a possibility this gets a little lopsided. Maybe the Chiefs do score 30 points, but I don't necessarily know if the Titans can keep up. I mean, Greg mentioned their defense has been awful. Against the run, that's true. And if the Titans want to run the ball down their throat, they can do that, but that's a game flow thing. And also that's going to keep the clock running and make this a shorter script, which would work towards the under. Aside from that, by DVOA, the Chiefs actually have the 4th best pass defense in football. I don't have a ton of confidence in Ryan Tannehill. And then the Titans are top 5 in the league by defensive drive success rate and fewest points per drive allowed. So I think they can hold their own here. I just don't see this getting to 50 points.
Julian, 49.5, too high for you?
Yeah, I'm leaning more on Greg's side here. And Garion made a good argument for the under, but in the end, I just think that the Chiefs' offense is going to show us what they showed us towards the beginning of the season. I think that Mahomes is going to be fine throwing the ball, airing it out. And the real difference here, though, comes on the Titans side, where Garion doesn't have as much faith. And I kind of agree with Greg that Ryan Tannehill has been solid so far. And while there are numbers that point to Kansas City's defense being solid, there are other numbers that also point to it letting up a ton of points to opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers, and I think that's going to result in some actual points on the board for Tennessee. So while I do think that the Titans will have trouble sticking around with the Chiefs, I think they're going to be playing from behind and be able to kind of carve out enough points to get this over.
Tyree Kill is at his most expensive price of the season, $7,700. Garion, do you expect him to be worth it because Mahomes is back?
Sure. I think Tyree Kill is always viable when he's paired with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you look at the receivers we have available to us on this Week 10 slate. Tyree Kill is averaging the most PPR fantasy points per route run by a relatively wide margin. So you know he's always capable of putting up lopsided numbers and big plays. The Titans aren't exactly a defense that's been susceptible to big plays, but at the same time, I don't think matchup really matters when it comes to Tyree Kill. It's either, is he healthy and is Patrick Mahomes healthy, or are they not? And they're both healthy, so yes, he's viable.
Jules, they're both healthy. $7,700 for Tyree Kill. Are you interested?
I am interested in him as a tournament play. I think it's really easy to kind of gloss over his name when you're going through the top of the wide receiver board when, Michael Thomas is a chalky guy that you're going to lock in, and then you just probably don't have the room for Tyree Kill. So just for that alone, that makes me interested in him in tournaments. And then, kind of forget the Mahomes part. You like Tyree Kill because he's just good. The last 3 games, he's averaging 20 DraftKings points, and Mahomes only played the first quarter or so, or whatever it was in that Denver game. So he's been good with Matt Moore back there, so why shouldn't he be good with Patrick Mahomes? I think that Tyree Kill's been a really consistent play and should do more of the same in this game.
Greg, $7,700, Tyree Kill, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have too much different to add than what these guys said. I think that Tyree Kill makes for a really good GPP play. Michael Thomas is definitely the top overall wide receiver play at the top of the pricing. So I prefer him, but if you want to find a pivot, I think Tyree Kill is an upside play that makes sense. Something else just to throw out here, because this is new news that's relevant to the Chiefs. LeSean McCoy is going to be a healthy scratch today. So that was unexpected, and I think that really puts Damian Williams on the board as a GPP play. This news came in so late in the day that I don't think he's going to have a lot of ownership, and there's a lot of upside in him as a tournament play. He's somebody who before the season in yearly leagues, he was getting picked in like the 2nd or 3rd round, and now he's somebody who I think has a ton of upside kind of in like the lower mid-range for running backs.
Greg, breaking news. We love that out of you, Greg. All right, a lot of potential for points in the Cardinals-Bucs game. Jules, over-under is 52. Do you expect this one to be a shootout?
I do expect it to be a shootout. It's a really tough number on 52. I wouldn't play the under. This would be the over or nothing for me on this game. There's just the quarterback play. It's not very trustworthy in a rookie in Kyler Murray, in a turnover machine in Jameis Winston, but the Bucs have a really good run defense, so I don't expect Arizona to get all that much going on the ground. And then Tampa's running backs, I know Ronald Jones maybe is in a decent value spot this week, but they just don't have a very good run game. So I expect so many passing attempts in this game, it's just going to find its way to the points.
Greg, you thinking this is going to be over 52?
So it's hard for me to say over 52 just because I do think there's a decent amount of variance in this game. And for stacking purposes, there's a lot of upside, but I'm a little nervous. There's going to be a ton of ownership here, and somebody like Ronald Jones is going to be a really chalky running back. Like, I don't know how much confidence I have in him. I think that he's somebody who does make sense for cash games. You can play him in GPPs, but I'm starting to think that pivoting off from to somebody like a Damian Williams might make more sense, just because we've seen this situation with Bucs running backs and where they've been really chalky in previous seasons, or we've seen them where all of a sudden it's like, hey, this guy's going to be the number one. He's going to be the bell cow guy. And there's just usually not that much upside from the running game.
What do you think, Garion?
I have a decent amount of confidence that this game reaches the over. I just think at a certain point we have to accept that this is the kind of game that the Bucs tend to play. And to that point, their last 6 games have gone over the number. And even from a pace perspective, I mean, Arizona still sits 2nd in the league in terms of fastest paced offense. Tampa Bay is 9th. So we've got 2 very high tempo offenses, usually high passing volume offenses, and 2 defenses that have been pretty underwhelming this season in terms of their secondaries. So until the Bucs don't go over, I'm just going to keep pounding the over.
Guys, a lot of questions to get to. Going to ask you to give us the Cliff Notes version moving forward in this segment. Greg, DK Sportsbook has the Bucs as 5-point favorites. Who do you see covering?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. I just can't trust Jameis Winston as a sizable favorite, even though he's at home. So for that reason, I favor the Cardinals and the points.
Where are you going, Garion?
Yeah, I can understand this, and I can understand the Cardinals being popular. Just it should be 3 points, and the fact it's not 3 points, there's no reason to trust the Buccaneers more than the Cardinals at this juncture of the season.
What are you doing, Julian?
Yeah, the Cardinals just kept it close with the 49ers. They should be able to keep this one close. Tampa hasn't covered a spread since the end of September, I believe.
All right, Kenyan Drake. He went for 31 DK points last week in his Cardinals debut. Garion, do you like him today for 5,500?
I do not, especially with the news that guys like Damian Williams at 4.9 have just opened up. I mean, the run defense is obviously something that a lot of people are going to talk about, and Tampa does have a very stout run defense, but they've also been great against running backs in the passing game, just 5 yards per target to opposing running backs. That's the second lowest mark in the entire NFL. So with David Johnson back, I do not want a piece of Kenyan Drake.
Julian, do you want a piece of Kenyan Drake for 5,500?
Definitely not, pretty much for all the reasons Garion said, but you've got DJ coming back in, so we're not going to see Drake in the role that he looked so good in his Cardinal debut. The Tampa run defense, obviously, has been very good, held Christian McCaffrey to 2 of his worst games of the season. And then just the price point. Like, you look around at the running backs around him, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Devonta Freeman, you've got Ronald Jones, you've got Damian Williams. There's just so many plays that are more trustworthy in this price point.
Greg, what about you?
Yeah, it's fade for me also. Just going to keep it simple. David Johnson's back in the mix. He's probably going to be the starting running back now. That's less of a role for Drake.
The Browns are favored by 3 over the Bills this week. Julian, are you buying the Browns as favorites here?
Anytime you see a spread like this, a 2-6 team favored against a 6-2 team, you know that something is fishy. So I'm going to say they want you to take the Bills here, and I'm going to take the Browns to finally piece together the talent. Everything points to the Bills winning this game. The Bills should win this game, but eventually the talent has to pay off for the Browns. We'll see if this is one of those spots. The Bills have a very limited ceiling, I guess, offensively, so I don't know if they're going to be able to find enough points.
Greg, what do you think? Julian, a little bit in his head about this one.
Yeah, I don't think this is all that complicated. If we look at the numbers, the Bills are the better team, and for some reason the Browns are a decent favored by a field goal at home. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, the number. I think the Bills are better. The Bills should be the favorite in this game.
Where are you going on this one, Garion?
I'm on Julian's side of the ledger here. If you look at Buffalo's wins this season, they've beaten the Redskins, the Dolphins, the Titans, the Giants, the Jets. Like, they just don't have a win against a good team. And by DVOA, you can take it or leave it, but Cleveland's actually the better team through 9 weeks of the season. There's just so much regression for the Bills. I mean, even their touchdown expectancy in the red zone, they've scored a touchdown on 71.4% of their red zone drives. That is easily the highest mark in football. They just can't keep operating at this level of efficiency. Maybe just stay away from this game, but I would take Cleveland.
Well, a tiny total here, just 41. Greg, is the game really going to be that low scoring in your opinion?
Yeah, probably. And actually, I do think that the Browns defense makes for a good GPP target. We know Josh Allen, how high variance he could be, how often he could turn the ball over and potentially create a defensive touchdown. The Browns have a really good defense. I think they're a really high upside target that could go overlooked in GPP.
Gary, and you agree it's going to be low scoring?
Yeah, a lot of negative plays here. Both teams rank inside the bottom 10 in the league in points per drive. They also both rank in the bottom 10, their offensive lines, in terms of adjusted sack rate. I just feel like the defenses are going to win out in a pretty slow-paced, just ugly game.
Jules, what do you think?
Yeah, not going to be a pretty game. I would lean under. I probably won't be picking a side or a total in this game just because we really don't know what's going to happen with these two teams, but it should be ugly. These two teams have played ugly so far this season, so I would lean under.
Gary and Baker Mayfield has been talking a lot about trying to get OBJ the ball more. Shouldn't be that hard because he basically isn't getting it to him at all. So is he going to make OBJ worth that $6,100 price tag?
Look, it's a cheap price for Odell, but if we're all taking the under in this game, it's just a bad spot to utilize a wide receiver. I mean, the Bills are only allowing 6.2 yards per target to opposing wide receivers. Only the Patriots are better than that so far this season. And you look at the usage in like high leverage situations. Damian Ratley has the same red zone target share as Odell Beckham this season. Demetrius Harris has the same red zone target share. I just can't trust the Browns to use their pieces properly at this point. So no, I'll be fading Odell.
Jules, do you trust the Browns to get it together? You were kind of saying you thought they would.
I said I thought they might.
Okay,
and that means
okay.
I don't trust them. So I'm not going to trust Odell Beckham Jr. Because there are just so many more plays that you can go to on this slate. And if you want to go to plays in this game, I think the only thing we can trust really is Nick Chubb and, like Greg said, a cheap Browns defense. Outside of that, I don't think we're touching anything here.
Greg, you interested in OBJ, or do you agree with these guys? It's just not a good spot.
No, I think this is like the 8th week in a row or something where it's been, is this the bounce back spot for Odell Beckham?
Yep.
Like, we have to come to terms that just Baker Mayfield is not nearly as good as we thought he was coming into the season, and that Odell Beckham hasn't been nearly as involved in the offensive game plan as we would have liked. So this is just going to continue to be a narrative for the rest of the season, and I think that the price keeps dropping, and for good reason.
All right, guys, we have a couple viewer questions that we're going to get to right now. Garion, do you play Marvin Jones without Stafford?
No. Not on DK, not in season long. No, there's not a chance in the world I'm touching Marvin Jones today.
Okay, Greg, would you start Slayton or Cole Beasley?
I guess Cole Beasley makes a little bit more sense. Neither one of them, though, to me, are really all that intriguing of options. I think there's better ways we could go for a cheap wide receiver.
Jules, what do you think? Would you start Slayton or Cole Beasley?
I guess I would lean Beasley just because he's been a little bit safer coming out of the slot, getting those short targets. So PPR, you have a little more upside. But yeah, like Greg said, let's try and find something better.
Good stuff, guys. Going to get to the rest of the 1 o'clock games when we come back. Going to talk to some sportsbook managers across the country, see what they're seeing on the ground today. But first, a dog.
Hey, it's Adam Kaufman. Let's find out which teams are going to get their odds boosted on DK Sportsbook. Thanks to Louise here. And bettors, just a reminder, these parlays have hit before. This week's 3-team parlay pairings are Steelers-Vikings. Pittsburgh has the LA Rams at home, and Minnesota has to go to Dallas in prime time. Next, we've got the Panthers taking on the Packers, parlayed with the Lions, who are facing the Bears. And finally, Cardinals against the Bucs, with the Seahawks, who have the Niners in the Bay Area. Take it away, Louise. And this week's parlay of the week is the Panthers and Lions. All right, head over to the DK Sportsbook and take advantage of this odds boost.
Time to hit the books when we give you an on-the-ground view of what's happening at DraftKings Sportsbooks across the country. Joining me now is Johnny Avello, Director of Race and Sportsbook for DraftKings, and Nicole Beauvert, Del Lago Sportsbook Manager. Johnny, let's start with you, though. We just got news this morning that Matt Stafford will not play today. What goes on at a book when a major injury like that comes out?
Well, all week it's been about the quarterbacks. We were kind of anticipating that he wouldn't go. That line moved up from 3.5 all the way to 6.5. As far as the other quarterbacks like Mahomes, we anticipated him playing. He practiced all week with no mobility issues. Then there was Ryan. He was upgraded to probable. Yes, he's thrown 8 TDs, but he's got 6 picks. And Matt Schwab played pretty well off the bench versus the Rams and in a starting role versus the Seahawks. And Alvin Kamara is back in that game, so that kind of counters Matty Ice. And as far as the Colts with Brissett being out, he had limited practice this week, and we knew early enough that he wouldn't go with the MCL strain. We did open that game 11.5, dropped to 10.5 early in the week. Now it's back at 11. Brian Hoyer is a formidable quarterback, and if you didn't notice, take a look at who they're playing this week.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Nicole, you're at Del Lago in upstate New York. Obviously, you got a ton of interest there with the Bills facing the Browns. Where is most of the money coming in on that one, and what's the biggest bet that you've seen?
Yeah, I definitely think that this line has been the biggest head scratcher of the week, with Buffalo actually getting 3 points. They're actually 3-0 against the spread on the road, while Cleveland is 0-3 against the spread at home. So a lot of the money is going towards Buffalo. We haven't seen like a particularly large wager, but just a lot of volume on the Bills this week.
Johnny, back to you. Which team is taking in the most money in Vegas today? I mean, any massive bets that you've seen?
You know, the bet, it seems like the money line wagers seem to be the choice over the network this week. Nicole mentioned the Bills at plus 125. There's solid 5-figure wagers on that. The Colts minus $5. The straight wagers laying the -5. There's quite a bit of money there, and they're in every parlay. And then the Chiefs on the money line, a steady stream of plays there also. But every week when Mahomes is in the lineup, it seems like that style of his play draws bettors.
Nicole, anything else noteworthy going on at your location today?
We actually took a large wager this morning on Baltimore to win the Super Bowl. Besides that, we have a 5-figure 3-leg parlay on the underdogs with the points for the Tennessee over Kansas City game, Atlanta over the Saints, and Arizona over the Bucks. And lastly, we actually had a lot of guests ask for a prop bet on whether the Black Cat is going to make an appearance at the Battle of New York today.
Oh, the Black Cat. I was tweeting about it earlier. I mean, he's still at large according to MetLife Stadium.
Right?
Yeah. Johnny, there's been some major shakeups to the future bets on DK this week. Russell Wilson is now the favorite to win MVP. Have you seen a lot of action on future bets this week?
Yeah, we have. You mentioned Russell Wilson now at 5-2 for the MVP. Aaron Rodgers has taken a little bit of money. He's now 6-1. For the Rookie of the Year, Josh Jacobs. He is a popular play and now at 4-5 in the favorite over Kyle Murray, who was the entire time. Kyle Murray's now 9-5. And on a team to win the whole shebang, that would be the 49ers. Grabbing money, they are now down to 7-1.
Undefeated. That'll do it. All right, Johnny and Nicole, thank you for making time for us here at DraftKings. The Sweat will be right back with more of our panel's picks for the 1 o'clock games after Mike Francesa delivers his Sunday picks.
Giants and Jets, they're going to battle unless, mediocrity causes the Meadowlands to implode or something. And really, to say either of these teams is mediocre, probably far too kind. Which team would you bet on, though? And the Giants are -2.5.
You know what? I don't know. I go back and forth. I haven't decided yet. I wish I had I don't know where to go in this game. I've been trying to think about whether I should pick a tie. It's futility. But honestly, Giants should be favored.
Yeah.
They've actually played, of the two, they've played the most spirited. That's the word I will use. Spirited football. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As an example, the Jets beat the Cowboys. The Giants have lost to the Cowboys twice. So the Jets do have the ability. We don't know about Bell yet. Mosley's gone. They're both. You don't have Ingram. You don't have Shepard on the Giants side. So it's going to be very interesting which way it goes. I'm not ready to give you a pick yet. I'm going back and forth. Let me ask you, who do you like from a distance in this game?
Yeah, I would take the Giants in this one just because I can't buy into a team that just lost to Miami for starters, and I think the Giants, even without Ingram, they got a little more talent.
If I give you this score, tell me who you think wins the game. 27-13.
Jets. If you gave me that score, I would take the Jets. Okay. But I don't think it's going to be that score, and I think the Giants are going to win. I think it's going to be lower scoring.
Okay.
All right, Cardinals Buccaneers. They're both riding losing streaks, but there are a ton of points projected when they clash in Tampa. About 53, actually. Do you like the over 52.5?
I don't like over and unders because I think over and unders are predicated on turnovers. That's all they're predicated on, short fields and turnovers. That's because you can never calculate those. That's why I've never been an over under handicapper in my life. I mean, there are times where I say, boy, the defenses are going to really play a game, and it's a defined under, okay? But even the games where I thought it was defined overs in my life, they've never worked out to be as defined as I thought. So I always think those are very, very odd. I know some people like them, but I think in this game, it'll be a 3-point game. The team that's behind will probably get the cover late and be down 10 and score late. But I think if I had to guess, I'd say the Bucs win, but the Cardinals cover.
Back here on The Sweat, I'm Jessie Coffield. DraftKings contributors Steve Buchanan, Reed Fowler, and Jeff Ulrich are in the house. Lamar Jackson's Ravens are 10.5-point favorites when they travel to Cincy to face the Bengals. Steve, can Baltimore cover here?
Yeah, I don't think this should be much of an issue for Baltimore to cover in this spot here. Like, even with Andy Dalton in the mix, this is a Bengals team that was averaging just over 15 points per game. I don't think that total is going to start trending upwards now that he's out of the mix. So it's hard to see how the Ravens don't cover here. Like, they can run all over this Cincinnati run defense. They're ranked amongst one of the worst in the league. So they get a comfortable lead. They can just go and run train over this defense here. So, yeah, I like them a lot to cover here.
Reed, easy cover for you too.
Yeah, look what Lamar Jackson did to these guys in week 6. I mean, he absolutely demolished them. And Baltimore is scoring the most touchdowns on the road at 4.2 across the NFL. So, yeah, give me the Ravens.
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
No, I think this line's too big. Both these teams are 3-5 against the spread, and it's not like Baltimore blew them out when they faced them in Baltimore last time. So I think Ryan Finley actually could give the Bengals a bit of a boost. I'd lean the Bengals here at plus 10.5.
Point total here is 44. Reed, is that an easy over for you?
Not easy, just because the pace might be slowed down a little bit if they want to run the ball as much as we think that they should. But if you look at the Ravens 2-0 against the spread on the road here, the huge margin of victory. So I'm going to say yes, but it's not an easy over.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the Bengals are averaging 15 points with Andy Dalton. The Ravens at 31. So you combine those, we do have the over here, but I still think this one's going to be the under. I think the Ravens will get up to a comfortable lead here. Then they can just run the ball and prohibiting them from hitting the over in this game. I think it's going to be close. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is like 41, 42 points, but just think 44 is just a tad bit too high in this spot.
Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd lean the under here too. Baltimore's the second slowest pace of play team. Cincinnati's the fastest pace of play team in terms of pace stats. But I do feel like since he's going to try and play a little bit more game managed style with Finley under center, so I'd lean the under here too.
All right, Jeff. AJ Green is out. So does that mean you have any added interest in Tyler Boyd or like Auden Tate here?
Yeah, I think Boyd's price has really come down to where he's quite attractive. I mean, this is a player who's averaging like over 8 targets a game. Auden Tate might have some Jimmy Smith issues, but Boyd playing out of the slot, I think that's a really attractive price. On a player who could see 10 to 12 targets here.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in tournaments, I think there's no problem playing these guys. Like, Tate's averaging 7.7 targets. Boyd's over 10 each and every week. And again, that's with Andy Dalton. But, they're both cheap. And that's the thing, what I kind of like them in tournaments. I think they'll have some issues in this game. Like, I don't think either of them are in like a must-play spot. But if you're trying to strap for cash or looking to save some salary, yeah, these guys are fine options.
Any interest for you, Reed?
Not really. I like these guys mentioned some plays like they're cheap, and I like that. I like cheaper plays or other plays in their price range. If you look at what happened last time these two teams met, actually it was Auden Tate who had a bigger game, 11 targets, 90 yards, and I believe 5 receptions. Boyd was nowhere to be found. And this secondary, it's renewed. It's a renewed secondary. They're healthy. They get Jimmy Smith back, and they have Marcus Peters. That scares me, so I just pivot off of these guys.
All right, a downright ugly matchup in New York today with the Giants at the Jets. DK Sportsbook has the Giants favored by 3 in this one. Steve, do you see them covering?
Both teams are just absolutely atrocious at covering the spread. The Giants are 3-6. The Jets are 2-6. Like, there's no team on either side here that you trust in covering the spread here. But I'm going to have to lean with the Giants here because we just really haven't seen much from the Jets. I think from a DFS purpose, I think the Jets are actually in a pretty good spot because the Giants just have absolutely no secondary. They're allowing an average of over 14 yards per reception. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to put up the points overall. I think this is going to end up being a pretty close game. But I'm just going to side with the Giants in this one.
Reed, Giants, Jets, who are you leaning with?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Giants. 5-1-1 against the spread against the team. I believe with a losing record, that will be the Jets. It's just, I actually like a lot of Giants in this spot, even with Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard being out of this game. I think that leaves the door open for guys like Darius Slayton, Daniel Jones. I do like Saquon Barkley against this tougher Jets rush defense. So yeah, give me the Giants.
Jeff, tough decision for you, Jets or Giants?
I'm going to lean the Giants here. I think the Giants' defense has played a lot better than people realize. They've had some tough matchups, whereas, the Jets come in like losing to Miami. I think the Giants are due for a good game here. They've taken care of weaker opponents, so give me the Giants -3, yeah.
Point total for this one is 44.5. Reed, is this an easy under here?
No, not necessarily. If you look at the Giants against bad secondaries with DVOAs over 20, like the Tampa Bays, they've actually averaged 26 points per game, and the Jets fall into that category. They're 25th in pass DVOA, so it's not an easy under. It's just a matter of, can the Jets get anything going on offense? Can Daniel Jones keep the turnovers down? But even if he does, that Jets defense has shown the ability to take it to the house. So I'm going to say this is not going to be an easy under. I would actually like the over in this one.
Jeff, is it an easy under, or do you going to take the over here?
No, I'd lean towards the under here. I just don't think you can trust these defenses enough. I mean, as much as Daniel Jones, I think his upside is nice, he still turns the ball over a lot, and we've seen what Sam Darnold has been like the last couple weeks. So trusting these two quarterbacks to get an over 44 points here, I think that's just asking too much. I'd far prefer the underplay here.
Steve, asking too much for you too?
No, I much prefer the over in this game. I mean, at least there's a lot of talent on both sides that just haven't been playing up to their potential. Like, we look at guys like Robbie Anderson or Le'Veon Bell, Saquon Barkley on the other side. Like, there is definitely guys on both sides that can help put up points. And just the turnovers, too. Like, we have two crap teams going up against each other. Like, mistakes are going to be made in this game. So I don't see any reason why this can't hit the over. I know it's not teams that you want to target necessarily for a game to go over, but when you have these two matched together like this, could see some fantasy points and some points overall.
All right, I mean, sort of in that vein, Jeff, do either of these DSTs appeal to you?
Again, I would lean the Giants. Their pass rush has actually been quite good at times this year, and I think getting pressure to Sam Darnold is only going to create turnovers. Obviously, there's risk playing either one of these teams because their secondaries, as Steve alluded to, are some of the worst in the leagues. But I think the Giants have more talent. I think they've been more consistent. They've played good against some good competition in spots, so I'd lean the Giants.
Steve, Giants are 2,800, Jets are 2,700. Do you have interest in either of these?
I'm not looking to put any of these defenses in my lineup here. Like, I get it, there's turnovers to be had, and I can understand if you want to play some of these. But if you're in that range for a defense, if you're that low, look at the Steelers against the Rams. They have one of the best pass rushes in the league. And then when Jared Goff kind of faces that, pressure, he turns into an absolute puddle. Like, he can't get anything going when he's under pressure. So if you're in that range, much prefer the Steelers. But if we're choosing between these two, yeah, I'll go with Jeff here. I like the Giants on better here.
Reed, do you like either of these?
Well, I mean, the Jets aren't too bad. I mean, excuse me. Daniel Jones has given up a lot of turnovers. So, I mean, this is how bad both of these teams are. They make me choke up. But yeah, give me the Jets because Daniel Jones has shown the ability to fumble and throw interceptions.
Get this man some water.
Reed, yeah, take a sip of water. I know it's bad. Try not to cry. We have some fan questions that we're going to get to, some viewer questions. Steve, Pascal or Diggs?
I would probably go with Diggs, just because I think that game can end up being a lot closer. If the Colts end up getting in the lead, they'll just run the ball with Marlon Mack, so I'll take Diggs.
Jeff, David Montgomery or Devin Singletary?
I would lean David Montgomery, especially with the news that the lines are starting to back up. There's probably going to be more opportunity.
Reed, try not to get choked up. Hoyer, Tannehill, or Josh Allen?
Oh, jeez. I'll go Tannehill.
All right. Good stuff, guys. We're going to get to the final 1 p.m. games when we come back. But in the meantime, don't forget to get your questions in. However you're watching us, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, pull out those keyboards, type away, ask your DFS or Sportsbook questions. We're going to try our darndest to answer as many as we can live on the air. But before we do that, let's hear from Nick Eatman on the Cowboys.
The most promising trend for the boys seems to be defense, right? 7 takeaways the last 2 weeks after only 2 with the first 6 games of the year. It is a small sample, I know. So do you look at it as an anomaly, or is this Dallas's new reality?
Well, that's a good question. They always say they come in bunches, and so they have for sure in the last 2 games. But I think there has a chance to be more than just coincidence because of the rush. If Michael Bennett can do what he did the other night and provide a pass rush from the middle of the pocket, that's something they really haven't had. Mm-hmm. They're getting great rush on the edge. Robert Quinn, D. Law, teams don't know who to double. But if they can start pushing from the inside of the pocket, Malik Collins, Michael Bennett, then not only do you have a chance to create constant pressure, but you're going to only rush with about 4 guys. If they can be a team that can rush and rush well with only 4, occasionally 5, then that's going to leave a lot of guys back there to catch those passes like Xavier Woods did the other night, get those turnovers. So I know it was a long-winded question, but I think if the rush is showing what it showed the last couple of games, then I think it has a really good chance to get more turnovers.
It's going to be interesting coming up here. It's a tough upcoming schedule. Starts with another game in prime time in Week 10. Dallas still home, hosting Minnesota. You got another tough test with the talented team fighting for first in its division as well. What's the key to the Cowboys extending their winning streak to 3?
Well, like any high school coach, any college coach, anybody in any level of football, they'll always say, we got to stop the run. We have to stop the run. You stop the run, even against the best passers in the world, if you can stop the run, it's going to be tougher on them. And I totally believe that if they can really, limit Dalvin Cook from going crazy and make Kirk Cousins be a guy that has to be in third and long situations, throw the ball a lot, I don't think that's something that'll be favorable for him. He's not very good against the Cowboys. I know he's never played with the Vikings yet. He's been all with the Redskins, but I believe 1-6 as a starter all time. Doesn't always have big games at all. So I'll be interested to see if they put the game in his hands. If he has to go out and he doesn't have Adam Thielen this week. So if they put the game in his hands, I think it'll be a tough night for the Vikings to win it. But they have to start with the run. They have to stop Dalvin Cook.
Amari Cooper dealing with a knee injury, but he does expect to play. Now, he's already had to handle issues with his heel, his ankle, his quad as well. It's a tough life being an elite receiver. So all that said, what kind of production should we expect from him against the Vikings?
That's a tricky one because we've seen him go into games banged up and play only a couple snaps and then couldn't play at all. We've seen him where he barely played. He wasn't even supposed to. Game time decision. They allowed him to play, and he goes off and has about 120 yards and a touchdown. So it's really tough to say. I think he's going to play, and I think he'll probably play well. I'm anxious to see if the Cowboys try to go a little deeper on their game day roster just to make sure that they have some backup for him. But I think he's such a smooth route runner that I still think he'll go out and play well. He's going to have a tough matchup because they got good corners over there, Rhodes and Haynes. But I think he's going to play, and I'm not going to bet against him that he won't have a good game.
Welcome back to DraftKings' The Sweat. Our panel is ready to take a look at the final two early games on the slate. We got Reed Fowler, we got Gary and Thorne, and we got Jeff Ulrich. They're all DraftKings contributors. They're all ready to go. So Reed, Drew Brees and his Saints are the heaviest favorites of the day. 14 points over the Falcons, who have Matt Ryan back at quarterback. Do you think New Orleans can cover?
Yeah, I don't trust the Falcons at all. They can't cover anything on the road, at home. You just don't like what they can do. Their defense has been bad since Keanu O'Neal has been out. But even then, right, even if they had him, it just doesn't look good. Give me the Saints in this, even though it's a 2-touchdown cover. Where
are you going here, Garion?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Reed. And it's not just about how untrustworthy the Falcons are. And they are, believe me. They have yet to cover on the road so far this season. It's just that the Saints are the exact opposite. They're just so trustworthy. They don't do things that lose football games. They come into this game ranking second in the NFL in turnovers per drive. They lead the NFL in time of possession per drive. They just manage the clock and control the game. I just think they win this pretty handily.
Jeff, what do you think?
Give me the Falcons here. Look, New Orleans is only 12-14 against the spread at home since 2016. Look, in the last 4 years, not all the games versus Atlanta and New Orleans have been 14 points or less. So it's not like we're seeing a ton of blowouts in this matchup. I know Atlanta is a lot worse this year, but still, 14 points, 2 touchdowns. This is Atlanta's first conference division game, too. Coming off a bye, I'm going to take Atlanta here with 14 points.
All right, DK Sportsbook has this game at 51 combined points. Gary, do you think it's going to be high scoring enough to hit that mark?
I don't. I think this game is going to hit the under. I just don't have a lot of faith in this Falcons offense right now, and I do have a lot of trust in the Saints defense. In the last 9 times the Saints have played a team with a losing record, the under has hit 8 times. And I think a big part of that is just how the Saints like to utilize their offense in the second half of games where they have the lead. I mean, in general, they are the slowest paced offense in the NFL, and that only gets even worse when they have a multiple score lead late in the game. So I just think they'll be content to run out the clock and really just run through this Falcons defense, which has been not been able to stop running backs all season long.
Jeff, do you think it could go over 51?
Yeah, I do. I think Atlanta's going to score some points here. I think Julio Jones could have a big day, and I really feel like Atlanta coming off a bye, like I said, their first division game playing for some pride here is going to make this a little bit closer and make this go over.
What do you think, Reed?
No, I'm with Garen here. If you look at this, the last 10 matchups against these teams, the over's only hit 4 times. And in New Orleans, 4-1-1 hitting the over. Even though we do like and we think this is going to be 2 high-scoring teams, the Saints have a good defense. And their secondary is a lot better than initially, just like how they always do, right? They start off slow and then they get better. So I'm going to say under here.
Jeff, big boost for Nola. Alvin Kamara will be back for the first time since week 6. Are you paying $8,200 for him?
I think if I was going to go for one of the two Saints big dogs, I would just go to Mike Thomas. Look, Latavius Murray proved what he can do when he gets a bit better shot in an offense like the Saints. And you just don't know. You just don't know if Murray's going to come in and take all the red zone snaps or what. So, I mean, look, Michael Thomas, we know, is the main receiver there. He's the primary receiver in a great matchup. If you can pay up, I would just pay up for Thomas.
Reed, do you agree, or are you going to take a chance with Kamara here?
No, I'm going to fade this. And if you look at the Falcons, they've usually been a really good team for pass-catching running backs. But actually this year, they're giving up the second fewest in terms of receptions. And it's not because of their defense being strong. It's just that you can attack the wide receivers against the Falcons more so than in years past. And that's where you really need him to hit that ceiling. So I'm going to fade this.
What do you think, Garion?
Yeah, to back up Reed's point, they just don't funnel targets to running backs this season. I mean, I think you could attack them with running backs. Teams have just chosen not to at this point, but fewest targets through 9 weeks to the running back position. So, look, Kamara came out this week and said Latavius has been really good. He deserves to get some touches. Sean Payton said they were going to be smart about how they doled out touches and brought Kamara back into the offense. So I'm with Jeff. If you can afford this, just pay for Michael Thomas. He's the better play anyway.
Our final 1 p.m. game today is Lions and Bears. Oh my. And the oh my is because no Matt Stafford. Reed, I mean, do you see Chicago covering that 6.5-point spread?
Yeah, this one's tough. Obviously, we've seen the line move quite a bit with Stafford, the Stafford news. And how do we trust Chicago? I mean, a lot of David Montgomery, who we'll get to in a little bit, but that just doesn't cater towards that. I mean, Chicago's defense needs to get right. This is a get-right spot. I'm going to lean under. I'm going to lean that the Lions do cover, but it's just going to be by a little bit.
Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, this is tough because the Bears are 0-4 ATS. They're past 4 overall. They're 1-4 ATS. They're past 5 home games. So it's not like you can even give them a little bump because they're playing in Chicago. This is a bad team, and 6 points is a lot for a team that ranks inside the bottom 5 in points and yards per drive so far this season. I'd rather just not bet this game. I think it's going to be an absolute mess, but I'll take the 6 points with the Lions, even though I don't feel great about it.
Jeff, if you had to.
Yeah, I would actually lean the Bears here, and I would not feel good about it, I'll say that. But look, Detroit is really banged up. It's not just Matthew Stafford who's injured. Like their best run stoppers banged up. I just feel like this should just be like a forget it, like wipe it off the slate game type for the Lions, and they move on to next week, and hopefully Matt Stafford can start. This is a real get-right spot for the Bears. You'll probably just hand it to David Montgomery like a million times, and they've had some success doing that, so I'm actually going to lean Bears here.
DK Sportsbook has this one at 39. Gary, and any chance that we see the over here?
I just don't think so. I mean, look, this is a low number. It has to be pointed out how low this number is in the myriad of ways, defensive touchdowns, strip sack fumbles for great field position. There are ways we get to this number, but two terrible offenses. And really, for as good as the Lions have been offensively the last couple of weeks, they've been throwing the ball at a 67% clip. It's been all Stafford. He's had 2 300-yard passing games. He's had 10 passing touchdowns. You take that away, they just don't have anything. They can't run the football. I'm with Jeff. I think the only offense we see in this game reliably is David Montgomery, and inevitably that's going to make the clock keep ticking. So I think this goes under.
Jeff, you going with the under?
Yeah, I don't think this total's even that low. Like, I think a low would be like 36 or 35. I'm fine taking the under here. Just don't know how Detroit's going to score, really. I think it's a bounce-back spot for the Chicago defense.
Reed, you want the under too?
Yeah, same. And we might get a defensive touchdown from Chicago. We know what they want to do and how opportunistic they can be. We've seen it before, guys like Conklin, Dix in that secondary. And so maybe that happens more than once. But when you have Jeff Driscoll, I mean, he might just use his legs and not throw it as much. So, yeah, I'm going to say under.
Jeff, you already mentioned him. David Montgomery, he's 5,300. He has back-to-back games with at least 22 fantasy points. You said you think he's going to have a big day. So do you think he's going to make it 3 in a row against this terrible Lions rush defense?
Look, it's a good spot for David Montgomery. I think you can plug him in cash games. You got to start looking at ownership in tournaments. There's a ton of plays, viable plays at his price point. I really like DJ Moore at 5,200. So I think big GPPs with the ownership projections I'm seeing, he's probably a good fade because Chicago still has like Terry Cohen they like to get mixed in. Who knows what plays Matt Nagy is going to call. He's a good play, though. Like, the upside is real for David Montgomery today.
Reed, do you think he's going to have at least 22 fantasy points for the 3rd time in a row?
I don't think so. I think Jeff's right. And, I mean, before, right, with all the breaking news, he was a decent cash play, but now we have guys like Damian Williams on the slate. Devin Singletary is also going to be extremely highly owned that are going to be in better plays. Like a lot of guys potentially set their lineups earlier, and they're going to be better plays that you can pivot off of. The spot's great. It's fantastic. Detroit has been riddled with injuries on both sides of the ball, but I wouldn't mind fading him as well.
What are you doing here, Garion?
I'm not as worried. I mean, he's played 70% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. It's 6 carries inside the opponent 10-yard line, 3 touchdowns, and those have been earned touchdowns. So I think, like Jeff said, there's just so many running backs from that like 5,500 to 4,500 tier, even 4,300. I think Ronald Jones is there. Damian Williams just opened up. People are going to be on Devin Singletary. I don't know if I'm that worried that Montgomery's going to see his ownership level too high. If he comes in as like the 6th or 7th most owned running back, I think that's fine in GPPs.
All right, excellent work, gentlemen. We're moving on to the 4 p.m. games after a Sunday night showdown preview from our friends over at KFC.
We've got a good one in Dallas here between the NFC East leading Cowboys and the visiting Vikings. Adam Kaufman, Reed Fowler, Steve Buchanan. Hopefully you know us by now. The Sunday Night Showdown series presented by KFC. Now the Cowboys, they have won their last 2, Bukes. I don't know exactly what is working. Maybe they're playing with a wishbone offense. Maybe. Okay. Who's your Colonel's pick for your captain spot?
Yeah, I'm going to be going with Michael Gallup. We found out on Thursday that Amari Cooper had an MRI on his knee. It's just a bruised knee, so he's still expected to play here on Sunday. But Gallup seems to be the safe choice here, has a 17% target share on the team, and could see a healthy dose of Xavier Rhodes, who's just been not the same guy in coverage, allowing an 84% reception rate when he's targeted against so far this season. So Gallup seems to be a safe play here on the game.
Could have gotten the bigger end there on the break.
I know. My captain is going to be Dalvin Cook. Like, he's been a stud running back this entire season, and over the last 3 games, 23 rush attempts on average. And when Dallas hasn't been good against the running backs, it's been those volume-based offenses. That Minnesota offensive line is fantastic. Dallas is going to have a tough test with Cook, so give me Dalvin.
Okay, we know Cook is awesome. Who else is cooking up a feast?
Yeah, it's going to be Kyle Rudolph.
Okay.
He hasn't gotten a lot of attempts, a lot of production early in the season, but now with Thielen out, he's seen 17 attempts or 17 targets, over the last 4 games. And so with Thielen out, Rudolph could be a nice sneaky play in this matchup. So give me Rudolph.
Is there another option you like better?
Yeah, go stick with the tight end position. Jason Witten, he's been really busy on the field as of late. 6.6 targets over his last 3 games. The Vikings have not been able to defend against the tight end position, allowing an average of 12.7 DraftKings fantasy points. So again, if Cooper ends up being banged up, could see a little more from Witten.
See, Witten used to be in the booth talking just like us for a living. Now he's eating. That's going to do it for the latest edition of the Sunday Night Series presented by KFC. Try the new KFC wings that I can't stop talking about today with your choice of buffalo, honey barbecue, or Nashville hot sauces. They are finger-licking good.
Time to announce our Caption contest winner. We do this every week on the Sweat's Twitter account, which is @TheSweatDK. The winner takes home $100 DK. We asked you to caption this picture of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and the winner of the contest is Kurt Dean 26, whose caption read, "I must ask you this one question." I see what you did there. Congrats, you are now the proud owner of $100 DK. All right, moving on. Time to see what our NFL panel thinks of the 3-4 o'clock games. Let's punch up said panel. DraftKings contributors Julian Edlow, Greg Ehrenberg, and Garion Thorne. Julian, the Packers will look to rebound from that tough, and some might say embarrassing loss to the Chargers when they host the Panthers this week. Green Bay, 4.5-point favorite. Can they get it together and cover that?
You would think so. They've been the better team all year, but Carolina has a pretty good defense. They're coming off the embarrassing loss in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and if you throw that game out, they've looked really good with Kyle Allen at the helm here. So for me, I think that 3.5 would be the right number, so I would slightly lean with taking the points with the Panthers here, but I do like Green Bay to win this game at home. Overall, I think this would be a stay-away spot for me from a betting angle, but I think that these teams are a little bit closer than the spread is telling us here.
Greg, what do you think? Can Green Bay cover?
Yeah, I prefer the Panthers in this spot. So if we look at the Packers, they were awful on offense last week. The Panthers' defense is pretty solid. And the other thing to consider, too, about the Packers' defense, they've been prone to giving up big plays. And you know who breaks off a lot of big plays? Christian McCaffrey. It's the reason why he's priced $1 million on DK today. So I think it's going to be tough for the Packers to be able to score by like a touchdown or more in this game.
Gary, and these guys like the Panthers, do you like Green Bay to cover?
I do not. I also like the Panthers. I mean, I feel like I've been saying this for 5-6 weeks now, and it seems to now be the popular consensus, but Green Bay's defense has always been a sham. They got off to a great start playing the Bears and the Broncos and the Vikings back when Kirk Cousins wasn't allowed to throw more than 15 times per game. That's how they built up all these great numbers. They've been awful. They're giving up the most adjusted line yards per carry. The last 3 weeks, they're giving up the most yards per play to opponents, 6.7 yards. They're just bad. And I think Carolina has a good defense and a capable offense. So I'm going to take the points here.
48.5 is the total here. Does this feel like an over or an under here for you, Greg?
Yeah, so I'm going to lean a little bit towards the under here just because we saw how much the Packers offense struggled last week. We know that the Panthers do have a pretty solid defense. And the thing, too, is that I think the Panthers are really going to try to look to establish Christian McCaffrey like we've seen from them do pretty much every game this season. That's going to slow down the clock. And just 48.5, that's a really big number.
Where are you going on this one, Garion?
I'm going to take the over. I don't necessarily think this is going to be like a 60-point game, but like I said, I don't have a lot of faith in the Packers defense. And while the Panthers do have a good defense, it's a defense that still has holes. They're very poor against the run. And they've also, when you look at just the pace they play at, which is exceedingly high, they've allowed the second most opponent plays per game. So there's going to be volume on the Green Bay side of the field. The last 4 Panthers games have hit the over, so I think that trend continues today.
Jules, where are you going?
I'm leaning under here. I do think that the Green Bay offense might hit a little bit of a spiral, and it started obviously at the Chargers last week when they looked terrible. I think they've overachieved a little bit to start the season, so if we see some Green Bay regression here on offense, that'll obviously help with the under. And then, like Greg said, running backs have torn up the Packers in certain spots this year, and Carolina has the best running back in the game, so that's where they should go with the ball here. That should burn some clock off, and I think most likely lean to an underplay here.
Aaron Jones put up a very disappointing 3.9 fantasy points last week. Garion, will he bounce back and be worth 7,400 this week?
I think so. Again, you have to think about the context of last week's game. The Packers were down by 2 scores almost immediately. The Chargers are one of the slowest paced teams in the NFL, so the Packers only ran 49 offensive plays, and because they were down, they threw the ball on 77% of their offensive snaps. It's just not going to happen. And the Panthers are a very good matchup for running backs. They're 32nd by DVOA in terms of run defense. I just think this is a very good spot for Jones and, to a lesser extent, Jamal Williams.
Julian, what do you think?
Yeah, is he going to bounce back? I would say yes. Is he going to be worth 7,400? I'm not interested in paying for him. I think that he'll have a pretty solid game. You're obviously starting him in your season-long leagues and whatnot, but once we get to that 7,400 spot, it's like, can you afford a little bit more for Saquon? You have Nick Chubb right in that area. And then so many popular running back plays that are going to be in that mid-4,000 to mid-5,000 range that I just don't really have interest in him from a DFS standpoint. I don't think he's going to have one of those monster breakout games, but he's come up huge in some really random spots this year, so he's probably a solid GPP play.
Greg, 7,400, is he going to be worth it?
So he's a fade for me. I think there's better running back plays on the board per dollar. And the other guy that Julian didn't mention who's right in that price range also is Le'Veon Bell, who I think is more upside than Aaron Jones in that same spot. I'd rather find the money to pay up for Saquon or just save money, go to Damian Williams or David Montgomery. There's better running back plays.
All right, next up, we got the Rams favored by 4.5 over the Steelers. Jules, should this spread be bigger?
I think it should, and I know the Rams do struggle on the road. And the Steelers' defensive line is probably going to get in there, get some pressure on Goff, make him commit a turnover in this game at some point. I can see that happening. But overall, the firepower on the Rams offense, I think that's the best unit in this game. I think that they're going to stand out the most. And then on the other side of the ball, the Rams defense should be able to get some pressure on Mason Rudolph, who's obviously mistake prone as well. So I could definitely see the Rams going on the road, winning this game by a touchdown.
What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, Jared Goff has been so terrible on the road throughout his career. And then also the Steelers' defense has been great ever since they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Brandon Cooks is out for the Rams. There's some injuries there. Todd Gurley looks like a shell of his former self. I do think that the Rams should be favored in this game, but 4.5 is a little bit too wide for me when you consider Goff's struggles in the Steelers' defense.
Where are you going, Garion?
I mean, despite Goff's struggles, the Rams are still 6-0 their last 6 games on the road against the spread. So they've been able to overcome that. And I just don't have a lot of faith in the Steelers. They've won 3 of their past 4 games, but those wins are over the Bengals, the Dolphins, and a Brian Hoyer-led Colts team that they should have lost to if Adam Vinatieri doesn't turn into Brucey from the longest yards. So I just think that my level of confidence in the Steelers is relatively low. And I just think the way they're winning games is unsustainable too. Even if you want to take out the missed field goals and stuff, they lead the league in turnovers forced per drive by a wide margin. A lot of those turnovers are fumbles. Fumbles are one of the most random things in the NFL. You cannot keep relying on forcing and recovering 2 to 3 fumbles per game to get your field position. I just don't have faith in that offense.
43.5 is the point total here. Garion just said he doesn't have faith in the Steelers offense. So Greg, do you like the over or the under on this one?
Yeah, the under for me also. I don't have a ton of faith in the Steelers offense, and then they're also going to be pretty reliant on Jaylen Samuels, and I don't think they're going to be looking to run a whole ton of plays on offense. And then coming back, like I've said, I don't have faith in Jared Goff being able to put points on the board up against the Steelers defense. So this should be a relatively low-scoring game.
Garion, I'm guessing you're taking the under here.
That I am. Yeah, I mean, look, Goff struggled on the road. The Steelers have struggled in general, and both of these teams by DVOA have top 5 defensive units. So I think this is a pretty high total. I'm comfortable taking the under.
Jules, you comfortable taking the under?
I am. We'll make it a clean sweep. These guys pretty much covered everything. I think that the Steelers' offense should regress. I don't think the defense, like Garion said, is going to put the offense in, give the offense the ball in scoring position quite as much. And while I like the Rams to get the job done here, I don't think it's going to be, that high-flying aerial attack that we've seen in past weeks and past years.
All right, Garion, James Conner is doubtful. Do you want to take Jaylen Samuels for 6,300 in this spot?
Yeah, he's perfectly fine. I think there's a game script here where if you think the Steelers are going to lose, they're going to have to pass the football. And since the beginning of week 3, no team has targeted a higher percentage of its passes towards the backfield than the Steelers. They're at 31% in that 7-week run. So Samuels is going to be involved. He had a touchdown, taken away last week. If they challenge, he probably gets it. So he could have had a better game and a not so PPR reliant game last week. So I'm perfectly fine with Jaylen Samuels.
Jules, how do you feel about Jaylen Samuels?
Yeah, I think he's fine, and the reason is obviously the PPR aspect. He has such a huge role in the passing game. The issue, again, like Greg and I kind of talked about on previous running back plays, is there are so many better plays. I'm not sure that I'm going to wind up having much Samuels at 6,300 because of the Barkleys, Chubb, Freeman, Singletary, Montgomery, etc. But at the same time, I think that Samuels is priced fairly and should hit value.
What do you think here, Greg?
Yeah, I view him as more of a high floor play than a high ceiling play. He's going to have involvement in the pass game. He's going to pick up PPR points. If I would have had a lot more exposure to him if it was not for the LaShawn McCoy and Damian Williams news, because I really went and tried to up my exposure to Damian Williams for today, and it kind of came at the expense of Jaylen Samuels, who I was fairly exposed to this morning.
And finally, we have the Dolphins, who just got their first win of the season. They're taking on the Colts. Julian, any chance Miami can cover the 10.5 point spread?
Having 10.5 is nice versus 10 or 9.5 here. I actually think that Miami can keep this somewhat close. I don't see them winning this game. The Colts, just on defense and having Marlon Mack to hammer that Miami defense, are going to find a way to get this done, but I wouldn't feel comfortable taking the Colts at minus 10.5, minus 11, so I guess my lean would be with the Dolphins.
Greg, you leaning towards the Dolphins here?
No, I'm not. I mean, congratulations to the Dolphins for beating the Jets last week. Like, woohoo, that's a huge accomplishment. But the Colts defense is really good. I think the Dolphins are going to struggle to put points up on the board, and then the Colts just grind the clock out with Marlon Mack.
Garion, any chance Miami can cover?
There is not. The tank is back on. They had three different executives at the LSU-Alabama game yesterday because they know what they want. They got an eye towards the future. Immediately after winning that game against the Jets, they lost their best wide receiver and starting running back for probably the rest of the season. So, again, the Jets are the Jets. I'm not going to hold too much credence into that. Brian Hoyer looked fine last week. I just think the Colts are a much, much better team, and they're playing at home.
Devante Parker has 5 straight games with at least 10 DK points. Garion, do you like him considering he's only 4,800?
Sure. Again, Preston Williams was such a major part of that offense. 60 targets. He actually had the highest red zone target share of any receiver in the AFC. So all of a sudden, there's a ton of red zone opportunities opening up to guys like Devante Parker. And Pierre Desir is also, for the third consecutive week, not playing for the Colts. So that secondary is a little suspect.
Real quick, Greg.
No, I don't really like him all that much. A little bit too expensive for me. I'd rather go cheaper.
What do you think, Jules?
Yeah, I like him. Williams and Parker are similar players. You take Williams out of the equation, that should mean more for Parker.
All right, guys, time now to say goodbye to our lovely News 12 Long Island viewers. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to see you again next week, same time, same place. And don't forget, you can keep watching us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you want to keep the party going, head on over to one of those places. Keep watching us all the way up until 1 o'clock. The sweat, though, just keeps getting sweatier. We got hot takes. We're going to make it rain. That's all coming your way after this week's edition of Levitan's Leverage.
6 teams with a bye in Week 10, but we don't. We're here. This is Levitan's Leverage. Adam Kaufman with the man of the hour, Adam Levitan. Levy, I'm not going to lie. We need kind of a bounce-back week from you here.
I'm ready. I don't remember what I picked last week, but I assume it was bad, so let's make it good.
Yeah, it was Josh Allen, Dalvin Cook, and Allen Robinson. It wasn't pretty.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
All right, we're going to go maybe you're going a little chalky with this first one here because no receiver is priced higher than Michael Thomas. He's 8,300. Saints are home against a faulty Falcons defense. The dude is averaging about 25 fantasy points per. We know he's good, but you're not worried about him failing to return value with his cost at a season high?
Yeah, no, I think that people are going to say, oh, well, Michael Thomas is the most expensive receiver. He's 8,300. I want to play Christian McCaffrey. I can't play Michael Thomas also. I think that would be a mistake because this is one of the best spots that Michael Thomas will find all season, home game against the Falcons team, which really can't defend wide receivers whatsoever and has had tons of problems with Michael Thomas in the past. Drew Brees is back, just sets up really well for Michael Thomas to continue his high floor, high ceiling kind of season.
Second most expensive wideout, Tyree Kill. So right behind him, 7,700 on the road to take on the Titans. Isn't this, a little bit of a shaky play with the Chiefs QB situation?
Yeah, I do expect Patrick Mahomes to come back and play in this game. Patrick Mahomes practiced full on Wednesday, and I think he'll come back and play well. And the way that you've been beating the Titans is with outside perimeter receivers just completely lighting them up. We saw DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel really get off last week. The Bucs guys got off on them. So I think that Tyree Kill's contested catch ability and Tyree Kill's speed is just going to be way too much for these Titans perimeter corners.
One more, this is a running back, Devin Singletary. He's $5K for the Bills, visiting a Browns run D that is known to buckle, does week after week. I'm assuming you're motivated by the uptick in workload, though.
Yeah, and the price. Devin Singletary for a guy who projects to see 60, 70% of the running back touches for the Bills and has a lot of juice in him and can make really big plays and plays well in the pass game. Well, we haven't seen guys on DraftKings like that around 5K very often. Even guys like Josh Jacobs got up to 6,200 last week. So I think the price combined with the matchup and the way that we've seen Devin Singletary's role grow is exciting.
Last week, an unofficial buy for Adam Levitan, so we're back at it today. Thanks, pal.
All right, good luck.
The sweat is back. Steve Buchanan, Reed Fowler, and Julian Edlow are here. And I'm going to give myself a little break here. Going to toss it over to them, let them burn the place down with their hot takes. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is one of our favorite segments here because we have the best takes that usually don't come to fruition, but that's okay. We're all for entertainment here. I'm going to start with mine that Sam Darnold's going to have over 25 DraftKings fantasy points against the Giants here. I don't care what you say. I know how bad they've looked. I know he's seeing ghosts. I know he's having a lot of trouble under center, but this is literally one of the worst secondaries in the league, allowing over 14.7 yards per receptions. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. I think Sam Darnold can actually turn things around a little bit against the Giants here and put up a very, very surprising at least 25 DK fantasy points.
It's not bad, right? This is a terrible game, and both quarterbacks, I think, are in play. I would argue that Daniel Jones is a little bit better because that Jets secondary without Tremaine Johnson, even Jamal Adams is still there. He doesn't want to be there. That's the spot that I would go to in this game. I don't mind it. Talk about simmering takes. This is okay, but
that is not true at all.
I like this game. You heard it before. I like this game, but I like it more on the Giants.
When you talk.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. This is kind of like a put up your Buke segment right here. Steve coming up with some random DK point total, and we argue about it. But Sam Darnold's not going to get 25 DraftKings points because he sucks. He's not good.
That's a good reason.
I think I would rather play than Sam Darnold. I would rather play the Giants defense on this slate against the Jets.
Terrible.
And just for argument's standpoint, and since we're doing a hot takes segment, I'll say that the Giants DST outscores Sam Darnold on this slate because that's a hot take.
Is that your actual hot take?
That's not my actual hot take, but I feel like arguing with you.
Actually, I will say that Julian's not screaming, so I can understand a lot of the points that he is making. My take's probably a little bit hotter than Steve's here. Michael Thomas, we know what he's going to do on this slate. I will say he doesn't just outscore all of the receivers, but he outscores all of the quarterbacks, getting at least 27 DK fantasy points. Look, this guy's been fantastic. Since, 2018, he's got an 83% catch rate. The league average for receivers is 63. That's the dump-offs, that's the slot guys, that's to anyone who's catching the ball. I mean, we know the volume potentially isn't there with Mike Thomas, but even if he gets 8 targets, he's probably going to catch 7. He's probably going to have close to 200 yards. This secondary is terrible. We saw what Will Fuller did, 16 targets, 14 receptions, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns for him against this team. Atlanta is terrible. I say Mike Thomas outscores all quarterbacks on this slate, including what Julian's doing right now is research, Lamar Jackson.
I am doing some research on our lovely DK Live app here. 27 DK points for Michael Thomas? Does this every week.
I was going to say he's going to outscore all the quarterbacks.
Hot take,
okay,
Michael Thomas
40.
is going to have an average game at home against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. This take is brutal. Yeah, Michael Thomas is in everyone's cash game lineup. He's probably in GPP lineups as well because you can differentiate yourself elsewhere. Yeah, I would say Michael Thomas going for 30 DraftKings points is like a mild-ish take. What does he average?
Okay,
25?
Let's do what Julian does. Mike Thomas for 50 DK fantasy points, like Patrick Mahomes for 700 yards.
That would be a hot take on a broken kneecap.
Look, I'm 0 for whatever it is for my hot take, so
Me too.
I gotta
Steve
keep it a
actually
little
got
bit
one right one time.
with the Dolphins.
Okay, close to
nonetheless.
2 actually.
Yeah.
So let me tell you this: if Michael Thomas gets 27 DK fantasy points, I'm actually probably going to be pretty pissed. Like I'm actually wanting a lot more than that.
Okay, lowballed
and if
it a little
all
bit.
the quarterbacks have scored less than 27 or below, like this slate's going to be an absolute massacre. If none of the quarterbacks can go over 27 DK fantasy points, this is a horrible take. Reed, you really, really need to work on your takes here because that's like 3x his salary if he gets 27. Like, we want way more than that. So
Okay, I know we have Julian over here on this side, but we don't need another Julian. Use some different arguments if you're going to come here.
Let's get Julian's because this segment is tanking right now.
Yeah, my take, I feel like, isn't going to be quite as hot anymore because I was in here listening to our
here we
earlier
go.
show that we do on SNY. Reed and Steve were making their picks, and Steve took the Lions over the Bears. My hot take was going to be that the Jeff Driscoll-led Detroit Lions go into Chicago and defeat the Bears. I think that the Bears are overrated on defense, and is Mitch Trubisky better than Jeff Driscoll? Are we sure Mitch Trubisky is better than Jeff Driscoll? I'm not sure. Jeff Driscoll was not bad at Florida. Jeff Driscoll did some things for the Bengals in the past, kept them in games. The Bears defense is overrated. I think people are going to be piling on the Bears defense, fading all of Detroit's weapons. I still think David Montgomery's a good play because he's got like 48 touches over the last 2 weeks. And he's cheap. You can still play him, but I think that Jeff Driscoll will be a fine play at 4,100, throw a couple of touchdowns against the Bears, and the Lions are going to win this game.
I mean, we've got a yes man to my right here, just agreeing with everything Julian
Bukes and I are way too much on the same page today.
Yeah, when you go with panel B, I mean, you get these guys in the same room, close to each other, they start agreeing. And so essentially we only need 2 guys on this segment because Bukes is probably going to agree with him, but come on. Mitch Trubisky has been bad, yes, but the Bears, I mean, Jeff Driscoll hasn't won a game by himself in his entire NFL career. The only game that he won is when Joe Mixon went off for close to 130 yards rushing against Oakland last year, and Oakland was terrible. So, I mean, when you look at what he's been able to do when he's had the starting position, nothing, absolutely nothing. The average that he puts up in terms of points when he was with Cincinnati was about 15 points.
Jeff Driscoll is undefeated as the starting quarterback of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, exactly. Enough said.
I mean, the thing with the Bears is that this is not somebody they practice for. Like, Matt Stafford is not a mobile quarterback by any means. Now we have somebody who can get it done on their legs. It's a whole different dynamic than what they were preparing for with Matt Stafford. I like this take because, like Julian said, I like the Lions to win this game. The Bears have been that bad. Mitch Trubisky is a mobile quarterback. You wouldn't even know it from how he's played this year. He can't throw downfield. He can't even beat the Eagles secondary, which is amongst the worst in the league. Worst in the league, Reed. Worst in the league.
It's almost like they have a third and dairy, right, Bucks?
Dude, that's a good joke. You should use that more often. I like this one from Julian. And to Reed's point, this is like a panel B gang up. You don't listen to the podcast because all we do is disagree and argue. And by the way, we're on every Monday and Wednesday on YouTube or any of your favorite podcast networks. So enough arguing. We're going to give it back to Jessie because she's had her break. She looks great. She did her hair again. We're going to throw it back to her.
I did, and I just want everybody to know that according to our Facebook poll, 100% of our viewers disagree with Julian's take that the Lions will defeat the Bears.
Is 100% high
against Mitch Trubisky? Hot take.
100%.
Yeah, you're choosing against Mitch Trubisky. Real hot take.
It was
there,
Reed.
Julian.
Reed voted. That's the 100%.
100%. That is, again, that is every single person
Thank you, Jessie.
who voted. All right. As always, that was something. Steve is sticking around. We're bringing in Greg Ehrenberg. We're bringing in Jeff Ulrich. And now we're talking fades. Gonna get your fades from the 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. games. Let's start with just the 1 p.m. games. Jeff, who are you fading?
Yeah, I'm going to fade Ronald Jones, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Look, everyone's kind of piling on here. They think this is like the Jaylen Samuels of last week, but it's really not. I mean, Ronald Jones hasn't caught more than 3 passes in a game this year. He's not a PPR back. He also comes out when they go fast-paced. The Buccaneers have 2 other running backs who they still are going to rotate. Everyone's just buying up here because of coach speak. Ronald Jones is pretty easy fade for me here.
Steve, who are you fading from the 1 p.m. slate of games?
Yeah, it's going to be David Johnson for me. We look at his salary, $5,700. Like, this is the lowest we've seen all season long. So I think a lot of people are going to be appealed by that. But this is against a very, very tough Buccaneers run defense. Like, they've just let nothing up against the ground. They're one of the only teams that have really essentially shut down Christian McCaffrey. And then we got Kenyan Drake in the mix, too. Like, I'm not saying that this is going to be a 50-50 split, but there is definitely carries that Drake is going to take over David Johnson here. Sure, he could get some of his PPR points through the air in a game that we're expecting there to be a lot of points, but I'm not crazy about David Johnson. There's a lot of value lower than him that's opened up, like with Damian Williams. There's a lot of other guys, Devin Singletary, that you can get cheaper than David Johnson, so I'm fading him for sure.
Greg, who are you fading from the 1 p.m. slate of games?
Yeah, Allen Robinson, because Mitch Trubisky's throwing him the ball. Like, I feel really bad for Robinson because he's a really good wide receiver, in my opinion, and I wonder what he could do if he even had a below-average quarterback throwing him the ball because he's really never had that throughout his career. So I know it's a really good matchup against the Lions, but I think that the Bears are going to be looking to run the ball in this spot.
Moving on to those 4 p.m. games, Jeff, who are you fading?
Yeah, this one I'm not as confident in, but I still feel like Marlon Mack might be a good fade in this spot, especially mainly we're talking big GPPs. People are going to pile on him. Obviously, it's the Dolphins. It's a good matchup. But I just feel like going over to Nick Chubb, who people are obviously getting off of because Kareem Hunt's back, or even Aaron Jones, who's, I think, in a real big upside spot for big GPP is going to be lower owned. I think those are good swerve plays, so I'm going to fade Marlon Mack.
Steve, who are you fading from the 4 p.m. slate?
Yeah, it's going to be Todd Gurley for me. Like, we look at the Steelers' run defense. I mean, this is not one you really run against. I mean, they've held opposing running backs to under 100 rushing yards 5 times already this season. Like, 6,100 for Gurley feels like a lot. Like, I know he gets all the red zone touches, 53% on the team. But other than that, I mean, he's averaging about 50 rushing yards, 11 receiving yards. Feels like a lot for somebody who's $6,100. So I just don't get why he's so expensive in this spot. That pretty much is tough defensively. We really haven't seen much from Gurley other than that. So he could score a touchdown in this game. I totally get it, but I just don't think he's going to bring back the value on a $6,100 salary.
Greg, who are you fading?
Yeah, Brian Hoyer. I know it's a really favorable matchup against the Miami Dolphins, but still, if we look at the game script of this game, Dolphins are double-digit underdogs, so I think the Colts are probably going to get ahead and then look to run the ball towards the end of the game. Hoyer looked really good last week after Jacoby Brissett got hurt, but I don't think the game script sets up very well for him.
All right, you three hang out. Need you to make it rain after Pat Mayo gives his Week 10 sleepers.
What up, everyone? Pat Mayo here from the Pat Mayo Experience. If you're not tuning in 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sundays to catch my show and taking your viewer questions, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But hey, I'm here, I'm on the sweat, and I'm talking about the cheaper plays you can fill out your DraftKings roster with this week. At running back, a lot of people are looking at Ronald Jones or even Kalen Ballage at cheap prices. Not Pat Mayo. What Pat Mayo is doing is paying up at running back for much better players. The lowest I would probably go is David Montgomery in the $5,000 area and pay up there and find my value at the rest of the positions. Just don't trust those guys. Maybe you do. I don't. At receiver below $4,000, you have a couple of interesting names. There's 5 of them. Josh Reynolds, Albert Wilson, Adam Humphries, now that Corey Davis appears like he is not going to play. Russell Gage and Traquan Smith. If you want access to that Falcons-Saints game, which everyone does, but they're only taking the higher-end pieces, Russell Gage and Traquan Smith, both very affordable, $3,300 and $3,200. They're more of a roll of the dice, obviously, but I prefer Gage in this situation. Traquan's almost like a big play guy. But with Russell Gage, he has taken over that Mohamed Sanu role for the Falcons right now. You're going to have Ridley on the outside, and he's probably going to be dealing with Marshawn Lattimore. You're going to have Julio on the outside. He'll be dealing with Eli Apple and safety coverage. And basically no one's going to be covering Russell Gage or Austin Hooper here. Hooper expected to be very popular. Gage, not so much. At a point total so high, these are the type of flyers that I am willing to take here. And at $3,300, he makes a lot affordable in your lineups. A quarterback paying down, again, is kind of tough. I do like Daniel Jones against the Jets. That just seems to be a good situation, although you have to know that there's no Sterling Shepard, there's no Evan Ingram. So even a stack, if you wanted to, Daniel Jones, Darius Slayton, and Rhett Ellison, all of a sudden you have all the money in the world to afford the rest of your team. Probably not the best of scenarios, but hey, it's one on there. He's only $5,700. At $5,100, Ryan Tannehill is now very interesting with Patrick Mahomes returning for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City's sneaky underrated as it pertains to their pass defense. They're actually much worse against the run, have a top 15 pass defense. But if Mahomes is back and he's rolling, I mean, you can just use him instead, but for significantly cheaper. Tannehill's probably going to pass like 40, 45 times in this game, and you can try to pair him up with either Adam Humphries, A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, those type of players, now that the offense is more concentrated, knowing that Corey Davis is likely not to be around. Tight end is where you're going to save the money this week. The world is on Mike Gesicki. Get it? No Preston Williams this week or for the rest of the season. Ryan Fitzpatrick and he have developed a rapport. They are over 10-point underdogs, so expect a lot of passing from the Dolphins, but everyone is going to him. You can save yourself a lot of ownership against the field just by pivoting off of him onto likely equal options. You have Jack Doyle. Jonnu Smith is down in that area. If Ricky Seals-Jones doesn't play, Demetrius Harris for the Browns against the Bills, the big body who they use in the red zone, no one's using him. If Herndon is still so banged up that he's just a decoy or he's even inactive at this point, Ryan Griffin becomes a play. And then Rhett Ellison down for super savings at $2,500. I would use all those guys more than likely before I use Mike Gesicki, who everyone else is using. You want to use Gesicki in cash? Go nuts. In a giant field tournament where you do need to separate yourself somewhere, using the chalk tight end of the week at a super low price, not usually the best of all ideas. And at defense, I like the Browns D. They're favored in this game by 3 points. If you force the Bills to start passing, they have a bad offensive line, a quarterback who takes sacks and turns the ball over at will, with one of the best defensive lines in all of football coming after him. So you just have to pray Baker, more likely Chubb, gets them up in this game, and it's just open season on the Bills. Vegas is backing the Browns at -3 right now, even against all the money being on the Bills. They're making a stand, so I'll make a stand with them. I like the Browns defense, and they too, like Rhett Ellison, will save you a ton of cash. That'll do it for me, Pat Mayo. Follow me at the PME, watch the Pat Mayo Experience, and back to the sweat.
Final block of the show, so we're getting wild and bringing out the whole gang. DraftKings contributors Julian Edlow, Steve Buchanan, we got Reed Fowler, we got Jeff Ulrich, and Greg Ehrenberg. So this is where you guys give us your DFS play that is absolutely going to make it rain cash for you today, a.k.a. make it rain. So Steve, let's start with you. Who's your pick to make it rain?
Yeah, I'm going to be going with Derrick Henry in this spot. The Kansas City Chiefs have been one of the worst run defenses in the league, and I know that Henry doesn't get a ton of targets, but when he does make a reception, he's averaging over 15 yards per reception here. He's absolutely dominating when he gets those slight chances there. I think they're going to have trouble moving the ball through the air, so I think that Henry could end up getting a good amount of targets here, and he's averaging over 18 carries per game, so I think there's a lot of opportunities for Henry here, and I think it might be one of the ways that Tennessee can try to keep up in this game, so he's going to be my guy this week.
Anybody have any strong opinions on Derrick Henry? Great pick, terrible pick?
I don't like it.
Okay, Julian.
Looks like Reed doesn't either.
Well, I mean, his touchdown rate has been fantastic, right? I mean, when you talk about how many times he's been able to score, and that's really where his value comes from, along with his touches, that scares you a little bit. Kansas City is 28th in rush DVOA, so you can easily run on them. But in terms of at his price tag, I think there's other guys. Aaron Jones is going to be more expensive, obviously, but I think he's in a better spot. I think there's other plays even lower. We talked about David Montgomery, Singletary, that you can go to. Derrick Henry has been that guy. Yes, he's been used more in the pass game, but used more in the pass game for Derrick Henry is like 3 targets instead of just 1.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's going to be playing from behind in this game, and that immediately takes some of Henry's value away from him. He's a guy that you hand the ball to when you're winning a game or when you're in a close game, and if Kansas City jumps out ahead in this one, Henry's going to have a really tough time staying involved.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, all right. We'll move on to Reed's pick. Reed, who is your lock to make it rain today?
Yeah, I think it's Drew Brees. Drew Brees is in a great spot. He's coming off a bye. We saw what he was able to do even with a thumb injury, like Steve mentioned. And when you go up against Atlanta, I mean, anything that you want to do against Atlanta, you can. Kamara, I don't think is going to be that. He's going to be good, but I don't think he's going to be great. Clearly, you know what I think about Mike Thomas, but Drew Brees, man, he's going to be fantastic. It's a safe floor. What kind of scares you, though, right, is in the red zone, they might be using more Taysom Hill. They might be handing off to Latavius Murray and some of these guys. So maybe in the red zone, that scares you a little bit with Drew Brees, but he's in a great spot.
Jeff, I know you like to disagree with Reed. What's your take on the Brees pick?
Me? No, never. I just feel like with Drew Brees, it's a pretty good spot for sure. I definitely like the over in that. So the only thing is his price, right? You can pay down for Matt Ryan if you like that game in GPPs. Or you can go down to Ryan Tannehill. So I think there's upside with Brees. I don't think he's a lock by any means. It's more of just a value thing. If you can fit in a cheaper quarterback, or if you can use a cheaper quarterback, you can be able to fit in more spots, more people other spots. He's going to get to be fairly highly owned today, too.
Oh, ownership a red flag for anybody?
No, I mean, like Reed was mentioning, maybe the red zone opportunities won't be there. It actually won't matter because they will never be in the red zone because they'll be scoring from out of the red zone because the Atlanta has absolutely no secondary at all. Like they're using like the backup quarterbacks at this point. They've been mixing their whole defensive line together. It's been an absolute jumble. It's been a mess. So not really worried about the red zone opportunities because they'll be scoring from outside the red zone.
Even better for him.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're good with that choice to make it rain. Julian, what about you? Let's get your pick.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with Reed on Drew Brees because I'm going with Michael Thomas here, who Reed, scorching hot take, thinks he could even score 27 DraftKings points on this slate.
Because I want to get one right.
Michael Thomas might even have an average game against one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
From the guy who said Chicago is going to lose. Chicago losing.
To remind everybody, 100% of our viewers disagree with that. 100%.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
So, yeah, I mean, with Michael Thomas, I'm obviously eating some chalk here, but I think that you have to play, you can't fade him in cash. You have to play Michael Thomas in cash and pay up for him. And I think he's fine to take in GPPs because I'm that confident that he's going to have such a great game in this spot against Atlanta. There are a million other places that you can differentiate your lineup. Take the points with Michael Thomas, even in GPPs, and find ways to make yourself different elsewhere. This is just a spot where teams through the air have been killing the Falcons all season. I see no reason that's going to change, even coming out of the bye. It's just the worst possible matchup you could ask for in the Superdome in New Orleans.
Anybody have anything to say about Jules?
No argument here.
Good pick, Julian.
Anybody on the
Thanks, guys.
On the interwebs? Jeff, Greg?
I think the only thing I'll add is that Julian seems to pick the highest owned player every single week.
Thank you.
So that's something worth it.
Number 1, I'm a cash player. Number 2, no, I don't.
We got the boom roasted sign on so I'm just.
That's fine.
I'm just letting you know, making you aware of that.
I will be fine being roasted and playing Michael Thomas.
Okay, Greg, let's get your pick to make it rain.
All right, so I have a pivot off of Michael Thomas, who I do think is a fine play. But how about Ginn Jr.? So somebody who's really cheap and has really good big play upside. So if these guys like Michael Thomas, if they like Drew Brees, then there's reason to like Ginn also. Like, we have to think he is upside in this spot. All it takes is one play from him. He could easily break a 70-yard touchdown or so against this Falcons defense. I just don't think there's going to be that many people playing him. We're going to look to pay up at other spots. So I think that he makes a lot of sense. You actually could double stack him. You could go Brees, Ginn, and Michael Thomas all together in the same lineup.
I mean, I don't mind that pick. I think the one worry for me is Traquan Smith is back, and Ginn is getting like a little bit of ownership. He's not going to be chalky or anything, but he might approach like 8 to 10. So I don't know. I think if I was going to take like a real like 1% shot, I might go with Traquan Smith. I think he's 3,200. That's my only criticism of this pick.
Well, I saw Reed and here do a little like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, when Drew Brees has been in the game, Ginn has been one of his favorite receivers, especially down the field. I mean, he's got top 30 games across. I mean, last season, quite a bit of those games. And when you get him in that price tag or that price range, it's a fantastic, especially if you want to pay up for these guys like Mike Thomas, Christian McCaffrey. Guys like him, Darius Slayton going up against the Jets. Even Keyshawn Johnson with the Cardinals, I think, are a lot of good GPP plays. But yeah, really love that game call.
Greg, did you have something to add there? I heard you start talking.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, though. So
Okay, cool, yeah.
It probably wasn't any good anyway.
No, it
You guys,
I'm sure it wasn't anything thought-provoking.
you two have anything to add over here?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing Ginn. I do like the call about stacking Thomas and Ginn. I do think that actually makes a lot of sense, especially in tournaments. There's a lot of game stacking spots that you can actually take on this slate here, so I do like that call, yes.
Jeff, let's get your pick to make it rain.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, wow.
I think it's actually going to make it rain, so I need to
Oh, bad luck. Bad luck, Ulrich.
Yeah, I'm going to Julio Jones on the other side, 7,500. Look, Atlanta is the team that's supposedly going to lose by 14 points here. Julio Jones could see 15, 16 targets in this game. The Falcons are likely going to try and double Calvin Ridley deep just to stop him from burning him, which he has done the last 2 games. I love Julio Jones on an island with Marshawn Lattimore. He can win that matchup. He has in the past. It's going to be a really good pivot here, possibly under 10% off.
Jeff is prepared for making it rain. Guys, what do you think of his Julio Jones pick?
I think Jones is an excellent tournament play. Kind of like what Jeff alluded to. Like, the ownership is definitely going to be there with Julio Jones. It's not very rare. I mean, it's quite rare when you can get Julio Jones at probably under 10% because of the thought that he's going to be shadowed by Marshawn Lattimore, which is going to be a tough matchup. There's no doubt about that. We've seen him shut down other receivers so far this season. But if you're going to get him that low owned in tournaments, paying up for a spot where other people are going to be looking towards Michael Thomas or Mike Evans, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense for tournaments.
I'm big on this game in terms of the Saints performing on offense, and while the Falcons have been so bad this season, they're going to have to force the ball to Julio some here, and he's going to most likely do something with it because he's one of the top receivers in the league. So I don't mind stacking Michael Thomas and with Julio if you want to maybe pay down at running back. I think we have the value to do that. So yeah, I think Julio in a couple of different ways is a fine play on this slate. But more so, I really like Jeff's prop.
Yeah, I mean, that was incredible.
Slate approved. Slate
there
approved.
He is.
Slate approved
Nailed
prop
it.
right there.
Okay.
Indoors.
Guys, let's move on to some of these viewer questions that we have rolling in. We'll go with you on this one, Jules. Matt Ryan, is he worth the play in cash?
In cash? Absolutely not. He's coming back from an ankle injury. The Saints are at least decent on defense. I know we were just saying that we like Julio Jones, but not a safe enough cash play. You got to look at Lamar Jackson, both the quarterbacks in the game in Tampa.
Yep.
Jeff, Aaron Jones or Marlon Mack?
Yeah, no, Aaron Jones for me. I really like this spot. I know his touch count's a little dicey with Jamal Williams getting involved, but this is a real big upside spot, especially in GPPs.
Steve, is A.J. Brown a lock now that Corey Davis is out?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that he is, especially with this cheap price tag. Like, he's priced with, if everybody was healthy in this game here. So I do like him in this spot here. I think there's other ways you could go in tournaments because I think his ownership is going to be pretty high. But like for cash, I think he's a pretty safe play.
Greg, Robinson, Tate, or DJ Moore?
Robinson, Tate, DJ Moore. I like Golden Tate a decent amount in this spot, just going up against the Jets. I think that's another game that's kind of sneaky shootout potential. The Jets and Giants both have awful defenses. It's a real game that I think it's hard to really pin down what's going to happen. But Golden Tate, I think, is somebody who really is in line to potentially have big usage this week with Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram both out.
Reed, Tariq Cohen or J.D. McKissick?
Yeah, actually, Steve and I were talking about this. J.D. McKissick getting targets out of the backfield with Jeff Driscoll. I think it's a good play.
Especially when the Lions win that game.
That's right.
We just want to remind everybody that 100% of our viewers disagreed with Julian.
It's going to be a real underdog story.
Okay, all right.
Rudy. Yeah.
Just wanted to remind everybody.
Pretty much like Rudy.
Jules, Jamison Crowder or Jarvis Landry?
Give me Jamison Crowder. Greg just alluded to that potentially being a shootout, and Sam Darnold targets that slot a lot.
Let's see. Jeff, Galladay, Metcalf, Fitzgerald, or Hollywood Brown?
That's a bunch of guys.
It's a lot of guys. Take your time.
Oh, Fitzgerald. I don't really love any of these guys, if you can tell, but I lean Larry Fitzgerald in this really good matchup.
Steve, out of that crew, Galladay, Metcalf, Fitzgerald, or Hollywood Brown, would you also go with Fitzgerald?
No, I'd probably actually go with Hollywood Brown. You know, he just brings such a different dynamic to the Ravens offense when he's healthy. We know that Lamar Jackson likes to go to him for those deep shots on the rare occasion here, so he just has that slate-breaking upside, so I do like Marquise Brown.
Secondary is banged up, too, in Cincy, so.
Thank you, Reed.
Yep.
Thank you. Why, thank you, Reed. Hey, Greg, Chris Carson or Jaylen Samuels? This one coming from Aiden Stracciatelli.
So I'm going to go with Jaylen Samuels here. I'm a little concerned, like, what's going to happen with Chris Carson after he fumbled a couple more times last week? Like, are you going to look to go to Penny a little bit more this week? Because we've seen Carson start to lose a little bit of work after the fumble woes. So now that kind of popped back up last week, it's a little bit of a red flag.
Reed, David Johnson or Devonta Freeman?
This one's tough. I got to go with Freeman, especially if you're in GPPs. It's just with that timeshare, too. You never know. With David Johnson, he just hasn't been good.
Jeff, Matt Ryan or Jimmy G?
Ooh.
Whoa. Easy. Really like the upside for Matt Ryan today.
Would that be as easy for you guys, Matt Ryan or Jimmy G?
I would say so, too. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, everybody going with Matt Ryan. All right, how much time do we have left? 30 seconds.
30
all right.
seconds.
Well, guys, that's 30 seconds. That's about a show. All right. Great to have you guys here. As always, have a blast with you guys.
Thanks for tuning in, Aiden.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. All of you, really. Don't forget, though, that you can watch The Sweat Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 p.m., all the places that you're watching now. So be sure to tune in tomorrow. We'll see you at 6.
100% wrong.